I think having hobbies is super duper important. The reason why a lot of YouTubers end up burning out is because they don't have an identity outside of YouTube they can kind of attach themselves to. So when YouTube is doing really good, then they feel good about themselves. But when YouTube is doing really bad, then their self-esteem is being hit and they attach their YouTube success to their self-esteem. Anything outside of that is irrelevant to them. So it's very fickle. There's a lot of solutions to this whole problem, but I think one of the most simple ones is getting a hobby. It's trying to find a way of feeling more confident about yourself by being more capable in doing certain things. I don't know if you just want to pursue stuff just to say you did it, you know. It's kind of cool just to say, hey, I made this thing. So I told myself this year, at the beginning of 2025, I'd start doing some hobbies. Now, if you're anything like me, you would overcommit and you would say, you know what, I want to do this, and I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and then you end up doing nothing. You don't have the motivation to continue all these things at the same time. Going into this, I can't do what I always do for the past 24 years and like be super motivated about something, do it for like 3 days and then fall off of it because, drum roll, you don't have a system for it. The times I remember I was the most consistent and most disciplined with what I was doing is because I had some sort of a system. And that was school. As much as we make fun of school, it has some sort of a good guideline to look at your life. But I think once we get into college and start working and all this extra stuff, we just believe we don't need schedules anymore as adults, despite the fact that we've been on a schedule ever since we were born. For the most part, I've kind of sold my bags on ever believing a self-help guru or reading self-help advice online. I think once you read one decent self-help book, everything else kind of just falls to the wayside and you just don't need to look at it anymore. But I knew I needed some sort of help in creating a system. So I asked ChatGPT. I know there's a certain app or website some YouTubers promote where you type in a book and it gives you the cliff notes of what they're talking about. This is essentially it, but it's getting it from the internet, which is the biggest source of information there ever was. So what I did was I knew I needed to create a system that would systematically help me figure out what I need to be doing each day and what I'm working towards. Because at the end of the day, one thing I've heard in my head is that you don't fall back on your beliefs or your actions day by day, you fall back on your habits and your system. If you have a good system, it works. What I basically did was for all the habits I wanted to grow this year is, of course, YouTube. I want to get better at Blender and I want to start getting into making video game music. So I basically asked ChatGPT. So yeah, look, I want to make a cute 3D 8-bit short animation of me vibing to music. What are some core concepts I need to learn in Blender in order to do this as someone who is not too familiar with the app? Now, if you know me, I've made a few videos where I use Blender and for the most part, they look cool, but it really is just me struggling to get certain objects in the 3D space and then just moving them around with a camera, and it looks cool. But anyone who's done Blender or is an intermediate with Blender would look at it and say, yeah, that takes like 10 seconds, whereas it took me like 3 hours. So I want to get better at Blender overall. Because with Blender specifically, you can be in tutorial hell forever. If anything, you should kind of just consolidate in learning a certain avenue of Blender, get better at that, and then slowly just open up the angle of what you know. There's no point in learning the whole pie. So for me, I really like low poly stuff. I really like pixel art. I really wanted to get into just low poly animations that I've used to see on YouTube or Pinterest or whatever, make my own character. The best thing for me anyways is getting the mental gunk in my head and putting it on a piece of paper. But in this sense, it's on a screen. But yeah, it's basically breaking down that I need to learn the basics. The navigation, the interface, learning different, and it actually like breaks down what tools and techniques you need to learn in Blender. Like I was very, very surprised in how well ChatGPT knew what they were doing. Then texturing, rigging, animation, all of that. But really, I just liked the way I said, okay, once I work on this, I work on this. And when I work on this, I work on this. This may not sound revolutionary to everybody, but it's the obvious stuff that I end up avoiding and looking for some kind of golden rule, some kind of secret sauce tip in order for me to get better at actually keeping my habits and my hobbies. But in actuality, it's just writing stuff down and being accountable to yourself. So yeah, so that was Blender. And then I also wanted to get good at FL Studio. So I did the exact same thing. I want to start making video game music as a complete beginner on FL Studio. Music similar to Undertale. Like I said, I wanted a goal. I wanted specifically to make Undertale music. I love Undertale music. I like narrative storytelling music, and Undertale feels like the best example of that. It's not contained to any kind of genre. But yeah, understanding the basics of Undertale. And this one, I actually asked for some YouTube links. Now, not all of them work. That was one thing that was kind of weird. Oh. Guess I'm wrong. Some of them work. Okay, yeah, the problem was they kept on showing me the same tutorial. But again, breaking down what I need to learn. I need to learn the interface. I need to learn how to use plugins. And my God, that was a hard part for me. Figuring out how to add plugins into FL Studio wasn't fun. I wish I recorded more of the process of me learning it, but I'll show stuff with the Blender process. Waveforms, arpeggios, bit crushing, all this stuff I learned. Shout out to my sister as well as learning the piano and actually showed me stuff. And I followed this pretty rigidly. Because I've recently come across having a lot more free time being unemployed. The cool thing about ChatGPT is you can honestly just trauma dump and tell them how you're struggling, exactly what you want to do. So I basically told them I'm trying to become a full-time YouTuber, I'm trying to work on gym, Blender, 3D design, video game music, and I want some actionable, proven strategies to work on this. So, and I've heard some of this stuff before, you know, using the 2-minute rule, automatic habit stacking, non-negotiables. Make sure that even if you don't feel like doing anything that day, at least I'm going to edit for 10 minutes, go to gym for 15 minutes, do a 5-second loop. I can do all this stuff. Some of this barely takes any time at all. This was the real kicker for me. And I saw this from another video. I might try link it. I think the biggest thing in order to keep certain things going in my life, some kind of visual reminder to know that even if that is not necessarily beating me, like slapping me on the wrist and punishing me for doing things wrong, but just constantly making myself remind myself that if I'm on the right track helps me. Because sometimes you go in robot mode and you don't even realize that you started to veer off the track you kind of set for yourself in the year. But if you have some sort of a daily reminder to see, okay, how did I do today? How did I do this week? How did I do this month? You might not even like hit every single one of the things every single day, but being accountable, knowing that you are in a sense becoming your own instructor to see, okay, how did you do today? How was your performance today? This and that. It works. So for me, I'll just link the video. This guy shows a journal that he made where he marks out every single day of the month, and on the side he has his habits, and he crosses out. He has each of his habits spread out on a line, and he crosses a box out every time he hits his habit. And for me, crossing that habit out isn't that I did it for an hour or 2 hours. It just means I showed up. You just got to show up and you cross it out. And now I'm doing like 3 times the work output than I used to, just on the sole fact that I just say, you know what, Maiwa, I'm not bothered to do any writing today, but you know what, I'm going to open the Google Docs app and I'm going to like just write 10 words. Just so I can cross it out and be done with it. And then even if I don't do that, even if I'm so lazy that or I'm just busy and I don't do that, because I have that journal always open on my desk at all times, before I go to bed and I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'm closing everything up, I'll see that and I'll say, okay, let me at least cross some stuff out. What have I done? What have I not done? And I'll see that I didn't cross those things out. And I don't know what the psychology is, but I don't beat myself up about it. I just more so say, okay, what happened here? What went wrong? I need some kind of daily tracker. And sometimes I'll even journal to say what went wrong. There's sometimes that, okay, the reason why I didn't get some of this stuff done was because I spent way too much time on Discord, or I spent way too much time on YouTube. What do I got to do to fix that? So it's just being not too hard on yourself, but being super hyper aware of every action you take, because you are constantly logging what you did that day is helping a lot. And ChatGPT told me to do that, okay? Track your progress visually, gamify it. So now comes the fun part, okay? I get to show some of the stuff I've been working on in the span of these 2 months. It's like March now. I worked on the basics of Blender. I really sat down and told myself, okay, I am not going to I'm putting my ego aside and I'm going to learn from the ground up. Even though I know most of the stuff to like walk around the interface, I am going to just say, okay, let me see what I can do. So I started off with one of these tutorials, the most low poly budget animation thing of a guy finding a monster in the street. And it taught me the basics of how to sculpt, how to texture, and it ended up coming out pretty cool. There you go. Even lighting, look at that. And that took a while, okay? If it's a 20-minute tutorial, you're gonna end up being there for an hour. The good thing about starting from the beginning and just coming at this like a complete beginner is that the YouTube tutorials I was watching showed me a lot of short keys and a lot of hacks that I did not know, that if I had not known, this would have took me out way longer. So from there, I decided to say, okay, now let me start modeling characters. So I took this one person's advice and was working again. I had to throw my ego out the window and follow step by step with what this person was doing in this tutorial, where the person was showing how to model this character. So I worked with reference with what they gave me. It took a while. This one took a while. I was stuck multiple times. Tutorials weren't really helping. But I ended up getting it somewhat similar to the actual character. Now, this looks impressive. It is impressive. I need to stop beating myself up. This is impressive. But if you, any modelers looking at this knows that, you know, the fact that this is blurry is because I wasn't bothered. The fact that it doesn't exactly line up with the front face. But, you know, I'm very much out of the mindset that I'm not a perfectionist anymore when it comes to making stuff online or making stuff anywhere. If it works and it looks cool on a zoomed out level, then it's good enough for me. I ended up leaving the tutorial at the point where I was supposed to animate it because it just was not working for me and I was getting stuck for too long. So if I try and move this cursor now, this issue kept on happening. This looks really, really high quality, but honestly, when you look at it, it's just starting off with a cube. Blender is weird that you start off with a cube and somehow you're able to make hair like this, her face like this, shorts like this, legs like these. These are all just cubes. The only thing that wasn't a cube was the legs. Legs was a cylinder. But yeah, worked on this and I was like, okay, you know what? Even though I didn't finish the tutorial, I got a good amount of knowledge from this, so I can probably move on. And again, I had my idea of what I wanted it to be, the whole PS2 effect, very, very low poly. And the fact that it is low poly and that's my art style works out for me because the more low poly it is, the less commitment you have making it high textured, high detailed, and more complicated as a beginner. So I ended up coming out with this. And again, I can drop a video. I have a video log of me building this from the ground up, but this is him in his glorious state. I do not have an afro in real life, as you can see, but you know, that's the caricature I wanted, and plus it was easier than actually drawing a hairstyle for him. There he is in all of its glory, and as you can see, literally just slapped on the t-shirt in front of him. His chest looks weird, but you know what? It's endearing. And one rule I heard in Blender is once you make a mistake, you just say that was part of the design in the whole place. So the fact that he has a stuck up chest like this for no reason, I'm just gonna say it was part of the art style and the configuration I wanted in the first place. You can see these washed up jeans I literally just got from Google, slapped them on. Now, slap them on makes it sound like it was easy. It was not easy to figure out how to get the material and the textures right, but it ended up working out. And these shoes are literally just my shoes. This is the cool thing about Blender. I literally just took photos of my shoes, took photos of them in front facing, side facing, and back facing. I don't even think I did back facing right. Yeah, look, there's so many issues with this, but there's so many things that you just won't see as the viewer, or you won't notice. Only like proper Blender heads would probably care about the fact that these stripes are not lined up with this stripe. But you know, zooming out, this looks funny. It looks cool, you know? And I was able to make him do a little animation of him just moving up and down. That's Blender. That's what I was able to do in 2 months. Now that may not seem like, oh, bro, you should have did this in like 2 weeks. Nah, bro. Like I said, this whole thing was a learning process, and I'm telling you this stuff retroactively. It's not like even as easy as I made this whole system thing sound, it's not like I stuck with it straight away. It still was a learning process on figuring out, okay, I need to cut this out of my life. I need to cut this out of my life. I need to make sure that when I get onto Discord that I've done all the things I need to do today, because when I'm on Discord with the boys, time flies by and 1 hour turns into 4 hours. So it was a learning process, and it was also just, you know, figuring out life stuff in between. And then the FL Studio side, which was me getting used to making games, was a lot more complicated. There's not as many resources and tutorials as there is for Blender. I guess music making is more of a creative process and a unique process, and nobody really wants to make a tutorial on making the exact same song, whereas you can build off what somebody's teaching you in Blender and make it your own thing. It's very hard to do that with music, I guess. So a lot of it was just my, I guess, slightly better than average skill in humming to songs and trying to find notes in the songs. So I think where's the first one I found? Again, learning the interface, because this was a lot more. I dropped this. I picked up FL Studio last year, but I really didn't know what I was doing. This beat is based off, if it wants to load in, it's based off this one song I had in my head on Spotify. I really like that melody, so I tried to emulate it. Now, don't laugh, but this is kind of what I consolidated it to being. So, you know, like you can see, it's kind of offbeat, it's kind of off tune. This is literally me just humming it and just finding the notes. I wish I found a recording of what it sounds like when I'm trying to find each song, each beat. But you can kind of hear the relationship and how it kind of sounds, and how it sounds very gamified, because that's what I'm going for at the end of the day. But it just doesn't sound the best. But you know what? I gave up on it. I could go back on it one day, but you know, again, wasn't for me. And the tutorials, again, it was a lot more of a creative learning process, where the answers weren't given to me straight away than Blender was. So I didn't know any. This is when I was hard stuck on not learning music theory, and I did not want to learn what chords were. I did not want to learn what major and minor stuff was. I didn't know what notes went with what notes. So I really was just trying to hum stuff, and that's why this stuff sounds like this. So just not the best. But then I moved on to something else. You know, maybe trying to make a whole gaming soundtrack right now is a bit ambitious. Again, let me just work on something I already know. And if anybody was there during the whole 2022 Blue Lock World Cup era, there's a certain beat, funk beat, that was used constantly. This one right here. Hey. So I decided, okay, let me try and make this one with the music theory I ended up watching. And again, my humming skills, trying to translate them over, doing a lot better, learning how to put different layers upon different layers. And I was a lot more committed to finishing out and fleshing out this song. And it's not fully done, but it is, I'd say, about like 60-70% done. Again, turning it into a game, trying to make it more of a gaming soundtrack, not trying to copy every single instrument. The cool thing about FL Studio and songs in general is that adding the exact same melody but with different instruments gives it like a whole different effect. So yeah, this is what I've consolidated it to being. This is what I've turned it into being, and hopefully you can hear where the original song is inspired from, but kind of, you know, I did my own thing. Again, not done. Now, I'm still trying to figure out how to get the second melody done, because I've actually transcribed it. I'm getting better at transcribing music sheet music and bringing it into FL Studio, but the issue is it's in a completely different tempo. It sounds way too slow. You can see it sounds good, but it's just not the right tempo for the rest of the song. So it's a work in progress. I left it blank, but this is the second part of the song. I love the sound of it. Again, I got this sound font straight from Undertale. Somebody online made a sound font package out of Undertale, which is basically, think of it like the art style of a certain artist. The sounds they make and whatnot. So if I use a certain melody and slap on this art style, it sounds kind of Undertale-y. And for some reason, it started going from the original kind of Blue Lock type song into like a boss battle. When I think of this dark choir in the background, I think of like Azrael trying to fight you at the very end, and you have this last attack to do. So I just really like this part, you know? But I really like horns, so I kind of wanted to bring back horns later in as it goes in right now. and now it's a work in progress, but I kind of wanted to go into a sad melody. If anybody knows how Undertale songs are, they're kind of like a story in itself. Music soundtracks in general are supposed to be played as the game progresses, as the boss battle progresses, as the cutscene progresses. So in this part of the song, in my head, the song goes to a sad melancholic void where I gotta know the main character gets a fatal wound. He's on the floor. He's trying to get back up. It's slightly sad, but at the same time, it's kind of inspiring because like the whole world is at stake. Everything has gone wrong and the hero is trying to rise back up. And I was trying to think of a melody that would work. Again, I choose my philosophy from YouTube about how there are no good creative ideas anymore, unique ideas. Everybody just copies off each other and makes it into their own thing. And this is one melody from this one band named Franz Ferdinand, where the rest of the song is complete garbage in my opinion, but the initial melody at the beginning is so catchy. Yeah, so it goes like that. So I was able to find some sheet music. Because I'm getting better at reading music, again, I was able to transcribe it pretty accurately. It's still not finished. I need to go back on it. I haven't done this in a while, but yeah. I'm just a crosshair. Yeah. So there's going to be some extra layers after this and this and that, and then it'll go right back into a different version. I still need to figure out how to change up the melody, but back to the main melody, but with like a twist, and then it'll end. So everything just comes back together, and then slowly, I really love how the effect goes where each instrument slowly just comes out. So choir gone. Second beat gone. That's it. So yeah, that's me so far. I'm proud of it. I don't know if people will say this is crazy progress. Frankly, I do not care. I'm just happy that I'm working at something every single day. When you're at the stage I'm at, where like your habits are still very fragile, they're still being worked on. It's not about what you actually do. It's just about showing up. And I showed up every single day for the most part for the past month and a half. And that's what I've been able to show for the past 2 months. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So I might make another video about this properly and exactly what I did. Especially on the Blender one, because I kind of want to explain the Blender side a little bit more. But yeah, that's basically what I've been doing for the past 2 months. Maybe that's, brought the speed down on how quick I'm able to bring out videos, but my sanity is at an all-time high right now. I feel good about myself every single morning. I feel excited about what I'm working on. And then when I finally do get back on YouTube, I feel like refreshed, I'm doing stuff outside of YouTube.